In the whipping, I'm whipping the soul out it. Chin the tone when I'm flexing like Pilates. Why you frontin', you act like you somebody. Keep a trail in the ville, how I go by it. I was stuck in the rut, I was nobody. I've been looking for something to go body. There's an art to the hustle like yo got it. Kick out a kick back and hit like a new shotty. In the whipping, I'm whipping the soul out it. Chin the tone when I'm.
Yo, what is going on, Titan Clan? It is your boy X here with another video. This video will be about if Asta and Noelle switched lives. I know you guys are probably wondering what that exactly means, but here's how things will go. In this version of events, Noelle wouldn't have been in Asta's position. She would have been an orphan. She was not aware of who her mother and father were. Not only that, but she had no magic. When it came on to people like Asta though, Asta was the exact opposite case, where she knew about her lineage. She knew that, he knew about his lineage. He knew about his mother and father. But when it came on to magic, he had an overabundant amount. Quite a bit hard to control, really. But Asta was a hard worker. Asta would never give up to somebody just because of the fact that he was at some sort of disadvantage. Sure, his siblings had magic as well. He was one of the only other siblings to be blessed with Mercury magic. Most of them had some variation of water magic. He was basically kind of close to Noelle in that sort of sense. Well, not necessarily close, because here's the thing. His siblings wouldn't have bullied him. Asta wouldn't have suffered from a case of being bullied for most of his life. Asta wouldn't have had to deal with his siblings constantly telling him about how he's useless, how his magic could have been so great if it were in somebody else's hands. His magic was great. Looking at his brother Noelle, he already knew that he had potential. His siblings would try and tell him though that no, he doesn't have the same potential as Noelle. Just because they had the same magic doesn't mean they have the same mana amounts. And it doesn't mean that Asta is really capable of doing as much as Noelle. Noelle was a royal. He had proven himself countless times. He had proven to be the greatest of all of their siblings, so to think that Asta had any right to compare himself to Noelle was pretty preposterous in their eyes. Throughout the years, Asta would begin to grow a hatred for his siblings. The siblings that would constantly try to put him down, say that he was useless, inferior to them. Just because that he had the same blood as them did not mean that they had any comparison rights. Asta was born with silver hair. Asta was born with mana. He was born with Mercury magic. He was strong in his own right. And he wasn't a bit of a pushover like Noelle. Noelle, do not get me mistaken, was no pushover. She would constantly try in order to really prove herself. But Asta wouldn't not have the same personality as Noelle. He was not as forgiving as his counterpart. You see, in this version of events, Asta would honestly really want to hurt people. He would want to fight his siblings every time they tried to tell him that he was inferior to them. He would have shown that it's rather the opposite. It's more so that he is superior to them because he would actually continue to train his magic and his body to an extent because of all the fights that he would start to get into with his siblings. He would always want to keep the advantage. When it came on to people like Noelle though, Asta didn't really mind Noelle. He never really liked Noelle. More like it's more so that he admired to have that same sort of control that Noelle did have. He never really talked to Noelle like that. He was more of the distant sibling. He didn't really grow any attachments he didn't really grow anything towards this one sibling. Noelle was just that one sibling he knows exists and is very capable of himself. That's what Asta would want to be. He would want to be a very capable magic knight. He would just want to be extremely capable and just prove to everybody that they were wrong about him. That he would always be a capable leader. He would be just as capable as his other siblings. That he was not one to be mocked at just because when he was younger he couldn't really control his magic that well. Honestly, even now he still has some trouble controlling his magic, but right now he's grown to have far more mastery in his abilities. They made him the way he is. In a twisted way, he kind of had to thank his siblings because they were the ones to really push him to actually get such control for his magic. The main reason why he even wanted to learn how to control his magic so efficiently in the first place was because when he was younger he would always admire Noelle Silva, the one person to actually have the same sort of magic as him, Mercury magic. Not only that, but just seeing how he's able to use his magic as well in all of these different shapes and forms, it was just so amazing to him at the time. But when he would have his other siblings breathing down the side of his neck, always trying to stab him in the back, always trying to tell him that he's this and that, it just irritated him. That's why he wanted to train so much. That's why he would train in the yards so much more than everybody else. He was known to be the hardest worker of the family. He would bite back with 10 times the aggression. He would bite back with 10 times the aggression whenever somebody trying to tell him that he was bad at this or that. He was not a very happy camper, you could say. His aggressive levels were pretty high. Not to say that he would just fight pretty much anybody for no good apparent reason, but it's more so that he would actually not be anywhere near his counterpart, his original self. He was not as forgiving as his original self. He was honestly quite angry with the world, but he would still never try and push us on towards others that have no real relation to him. If they didn't really know who he was and they never mocked him or anything, he wouldn't really say anything to them. He wouldn't really mind their presence. If they were cool with him, he would be cool with them. That's basically how it was for him and Noelle. That's why they were the few that were actually able to get along with each other. And when I say get along, more like just be in the same vicinity as each other. That's how bad the relationships got over the years with Asta and his other siblings, Solid and Nebra. By the time By the time the boy had reached the age of 15, we already know what would happen. We are aware of the fact that he would still want to be a magic knight. Asta's dream was to become a magic knight and possibly become the Wizard King as well. That's pretty much everybody's dream nowadays. Everybody would like to be the Wizard King, have that sort of role in society. It's second to none, really. The only other role that would possibly be higher is, well, you would have to be born into it. This is something Asta would desire to be. He would want to become the Wizard King, and the first step to becoming the Wizard King was to become a magic knight and be a strong magic knight at that. But when it came on to certain events that happened in the past, well, his whole life really, he would not desire to want to be part of the Silver Eagles. Once his siblings found out about this, they would confront him about this. Usually it would be a quiet home. There wasn't really much bragging or anything because Asta had basically put everybody down at this point. But when it came on to hearing the fact that Asta did not want to be part of the Silver Eagles, not that they wanted him to be put on to the Silver Eagles or anything. It's more so a family tradition. They wouldn't have started to try and berate him, saying that, "How dare you! You are going to ruin family tradition, all because of some petty stuff. How can you do such a thing? How dare you not want to be part of the Silver Eagles?" Asta would just tell them to be quiet. They do not understand his pain. They don't understand that he hates a lot of them. The only person in the family that he doesn't hate is Noelle, and even then, they are just barely even on talking terms. They just exist. So why would he want to be part of the Silver Eagles? He doesn't really care about family tradition and all of this. Yeah, he doesn't really care. He's become even more seclusive. He doesn't talk to many people in the very first place. Noelle, he said before, he's tolerable. The others, he can't say the same for. These guys were the ones to always give him trouble throughout his earlier years. So really, what other reason could you give him to really join the Silver Eagles besides, oh, it's family tradition, because that's already been thrown out the window. Give him one really good reason that he can't refute. That would be a reason for him to actually want to join the Silver Eagles. Just one. They will be silent. They could not really think of one. And Asta would just leave the premises, getting ready for the Magic Knight exams. He would need to travel, of course, in all of this. He would have also gotten his grimoire around this time, a 3-leaf clover grimoire. There's no way I'm giving him a 4-leaf grimoire. A 4-leaf clover grimoire. That's only for, Anyways, when it came on to the Magic Knight exams, Asta, you already know, would do fairly well in this. He would be able to actually, compete with the rest of the guys that were here. He had a really strong amount of mana, thanks to the fact that he was born a royal in this version of events. He even had the silver hair just like his siblings. Not only this, but he was able to fly on the magic broom, although when it came on to balance, he was a bit wonky in that. When it came onto the shooting range, When it came on to basically using his magic as projectiles, he would have aced that. He would have done well in pretty much everything else. And thanks to the fact that they know he's a Silva, one of the Silva family members, this would have also been grounds for Asta to be accepted by the Golden Dawn. A lot of the Magic Knight captains would have raised their hand, even including Yami, although he already knew that Asta, there was a 99% chance he was not going to join his squad, but there was still that 1% chance that he was willing to take. Of course, though, once he saw that the Golden Dawn had raised their hands, he knew that he was not going to join them. And sure enough, Asta did join the Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn were known for their impeccable abilities, their impeccable magic knights, all of this. So it only made sense for Asta to really join the Golden Dawn in order to really further his goals. His goals in life were to become the Magic Knight captain, and then evolve from there towards being the Wizard King. Obviously, he would also meet Yuno along this time as well. Although, when it comes on to Yuno, he doesn't really know the boy. All he knows is that this guy has very strong magic, and he's apparently a commoner. He's not like the other royals in this case, because of the fact that he just doesn't really care about what sort of rank you have in life. He was born with magic. He was born with magic as well. That's all he really is concerned about. This guy is capable of himself, and Asta is also capable of himself. That's all that really matters to Asta. As long as you can fight, that's all that matters in life. That's basically how he was raised. You need to prove to others that you are capable of yourself. If you can't do that, then you need to train harder. You need to get a better grip on your abilities. That's basically what was ingrained into Asta's mind since he was young. And I know you guys are probably wondering, but what about Noelle? This is when I should actually mention Noelle. In this version of events, Noelle is actually born a commoner with no magic. She would have been left at the orphanage at the same time as Yuno. Yuno would have still had that pendant around his neck and everything. Nothing changes along those lines. But when it comes on to Noelle, she was basically like a big sister to most of those kids at the orphanage. She was always given the big sister role, and when it came on to fighting and all that, obviously Yuno would have had the advantage, considering that he was blessed with strong amounts of mana. Noelle wasn't so lucky. She was the exact opposite, in where she had no mana to begin with. Nothing to manipulate, not even the slightest bit to really grow. She would have been disappointed to find out she had no magic. This was a rarity, in fact. But she would not give up. She knew that she could probably do something. She wasn't really aware that she had zero magic. She, for many years, just thought she had very little amounts of magic, or that her magic was just going to come later on in her life, and that it was probably going to be a very, very strong magic type as well. So she would have trained her body to actually get used to this sort of stuff. Get some training in so that she would be able to fight while waiting for her magic to arrive. And in hopes that whenever her magic does arrive, this would also be a very strong magic that would be compatible with her body. She didn't want to have something like gravity magic, and the next thing you know, it also has some drawbacks on her body whenever she uses it, because her body's too frail for such a magic type. She would obviously not realize that there was an anti-magic devil inside of her, though. Not inside of her, but that she was born with no magic, and that later events would show that this training would still pull off. She would have actually been arguably training even harder than Asta here. Asta was able to get quite a bit of muscle throughout his life. We can't say the same for Noelle because of the fact that she was born female. Now, I'm not giving any sort of hate to females out there. I'm saying this right now because this needs to be addressed. There is no way that Noelle is going to pack on the same amount of muscle as Asta. She doesn't have the same testosterone levels as this boy. Not only that, but she's just not designed that sort of way. She would be muscular, yes. She would have had her own sort of muscle. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to deny that. She has an athletic sort of frame, and she's still able to whoop butt in all of this. She's stronger than she looks. It's just that she can't really put on the same amount of muscle. In terms of physical strength here, I would actually say that she's like around 4th place here. She's not to the same degree as Canon Asta, but when it comes on to physical strength in this world, she would have been stronger than even this universe's Asta. Because while he would train his body, he would not train it as much as someone like Noelle, who was literally born with no magic, and that's all she had to train with, her body. She would have been on the much stronger roster. And when it came on to just having her magic book, her grimoire, when she turned 15, guess what? She would have realized that she was not going to get a grimoire. She had hopes. She had hoped for the longest that she would get a grimoire, and this would finally unlock her magic. This wouldn't have been the first time when somebody would actually unlock their magic after they got their grimoire, but she was the one unfortunate case of literally being the only person to not get a grimoire, not even a piece of paper or anything along those lines. So she was just frustrated with herself. She would have walked out while everybody was just laughing at her. She would have went back to the cavern to actually train. And she would have tried training even harder than before, saying that she would become a magic knight. She would be something that people would actually aspire to be one day. And she would actually be an inspiration. She would be the Wizard King, or Queen in this case. The reason for this being because of just how she was raised in this version. She would have probably not cared as much for being the Wizard Queen, but in this version of events, everybody was putting her down because of the fact that she was born with literally 0 mana. People would even say that they couldn't sense a lick of mana off of her. This would have put her into a bad sort of mental state for some while. It's only when she started to train that she would have actually gotten out of that stupor, and this was her only means of remedy, her only means of coping with the fact that she had no magic training. So she would have been a bit of a workaholic in that sort of sense, sometimes braining muscle, just gaining endurance. She would have had much more endurance in this sort of timeline than muscle than just pretty much anything else. She was able to really pack a punch in all of her fights, and she would have been messing around in the caverns until she realized that, well, Yuno wasn't back yet. When she went to check at the orphanage, the church, she asked about Yuno, and she found out that he wasn't here. He was still at the ceremony. She was confused and decided to go look what's up with that. What she ended up realizing though was, well, he was in a bit of a predicament. He was wrapped up in chains, and this one weird looking mage with greasy looking black hair and a scar along his face. He was just there, just smiling wickedly as he was mentioning how this 4-leaf grimoire he could sell for quite a bit of money. She was able to tell that Yuno was struggling here. She felt defeated though. She didn't really know what to do in this sort of time. She was born with zero magic, so what could she possibly do in this sort of moment? Yuno would have realized that she was his only hope in this sort of circumstance, but she had been let down so many times throughout her life. She needed some sort of encouragement. He would have tried to at least say these words. Although they were a bit muffled from the chains, he would still be able to get these couple of words out. Say that she is his rival. She is the one that really inspired him to become this strong. Knowing that she had zero mana to begin with, yet she still fights to this day. She is his eternal rival, and she will always know that. And he just wants her to know this and to actually help him in this sort of circumstance. She is his only hope here. He believes that she is capable. Just because she was born without magic doesn't mean that she can't do anything. She is not useless. She is very capable of herself. She's proven that countless times. So prove it one more time to this jerk right here. She would have actually gotten a bit of inspiration here. She would have actually began to lighten up. She would have regained her vigor. Or vigor? I believe it's vigor. She would have actually gained her strength back and actually resist the temptations of just giving up. She would have had so much more strength here, and this would actually awaken the grimoire, the 5-leaf grimoire. In a moment of pure speed, and something that would even speed blitz this guy, this former mage, she was actually able to outpace him. She actually grabbed the sword from this red and black grimoire, this dirty looking grimoire, which had this red tint to it. It was glowing red. She just pulled out this rusted sword, and she just slashed him with it. She slashed the chains from Yuno, and then she slashed him with it. He was actually bleeding here, but she also hit him several times with the flat edge of it, and the more broad side of the sword, over and over again until he had a concussion. And something that he realized though throughout all of this was that he was actually unable to use his magic. He was confused and he was trying to figure this out. What was the meaning behind this? Was this like some sort of... No, impossible. This is impossible. There's no way. But of course, you all know what I'm talking about. She had anti-magic. This was a game changer. Even Yami would realize this soon. For you see, after she was done dealing with this chain magic user, she would have retrieved Yuno's grimoire. She would have given it back to him, and he would have expressed his gratitude, now mentioning that he was going to become the Wizard King with this grimoire, now that he had it back in his possession. Noelle would have bickered with him a little bit, saying that no, she's going to be the Wizard King now that she has this grimoire with her. Yuno would have congratulated her on the fact that she had the grimoire now. Now she could actually really compete with him. He was interested to see what she was going to be capable of in the future. She would have said the same towards him as well, but obviously though, they would have had to leave and continue their training. During one of her training sessions one day, the reason why I would bring up Yami is, well, she would have actually been in the woods training during this time. He was just doing whatever at this point. There was really no reason why he was in the woods. He would have just told Finral to just wait up for him while he's just exploring the Magic Kingdom, the Clover Kingdom, I should say. He would just be wandering around, smoking his cigar, just chopping down trees and all of that, maybe put some firewood. And then he would encounter Noelle just training with this gigantic sword. He would just see her with these swords and wonder what the heck is she doing. She sees that there's some really buff guy up there. He's just smoking this cigar, and with how the sun is, it's basically showing a sort of silhouette of him. He's in the shadows, and this just makes his appearance even more intimidating. She even whimpers a little bit, but decides to stand her ground and really have her sword thrusted towards him, in case he would try and do any sort of vile actions. She would show that she is still capable of herself. She knows how to fight here. She's not going to be some little doll or something along those lines. She was going to be ready to fight at any moment. Yami would just chuckle. He would just ask her what she's doing in the woods all by herself. She would just say that she's training. He would ask, training for what? The Magic Knight exams? Of course she would nod, saying that she's going to become the next Magic King. What am I saying? Magic King. She's going to become a Magic Knight. She's going to become a Magic Knight and then eventually become the Wizard King. That's what she would end up saying to Yami. Yami would have realized though that he doesn't sense even a speck of mana from her though. And he would ask her how she's going to do that if he can't even sense any mana from her. She would then explain that although she has no magic, she has something else. She would explain that she has what you would probably call anti-magic or anti-magic. In this sense, it basically nullifies the effects of regular magic. Her magic is anti-magic, and only she's able to really wield such a sword because of the fact that this sword seems to have the ability to drain the magic, or well, the mana out of people, make it temporary make it so that they're temporarily magicless monoliths. Obviously though, Yami would be a bit skeptical of this. He would ask to wield one of the swords, and of course she would oblige. Immediately though, he would begin to lose his balance while trying to pick up the thing. He would realize that he's really weak right now. He feels really weak, and this is unusual even now, but he would still try and pick up the sword thanks to his already immaculate strength. He's actually able to slightly nudge the sword, but he just feels too weak to really do much more because of the fact that it keeps on draining more and more of his mana, and he's feeling more and more exhausted. He lets go and begins to feel much better now. He feels much better after releasing the sword, getting a couple of feet away from the sword, and realizes the opportunity he has with this girl. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. This is history in the making. Obviously, he would not let this sort of opportunity go to waste. He would just grab Noelle and say that she's a magic knight now, and call Finro. Finro would appear, and he would be confused at first, although he would probably try and do the moves on, well, Noelle. After all, he is a bit of a ladies' man. But she would just flat out ignore him and just look more confused than anything, and Yami asked what does he mean by she's a magic knight now. She didn't even take the exams yet. Yami would explain that he is the magic knight captain for the Black Bulls, and she is officially a recruit for the Black Bulls. She would decide to accept this, and well, more so after she's given a robe, because now she knows that he's telling the truth. No regular noble, not any regular commoner would be able to get their hands on this. And when they're actually teleported away over to the Black Bull's hideout, she would have even more confirmation about this. She would have just asked to be able to tell her orphanage family about this news. Well, her foster family, you could say. And obviously, they wouldn't have no problems with this. They would go ahead and send her back to the woods with Finro and Yami following her. They would go back to the orphanage and inform everybody about the great news. Everybody would be shocked though. They would never have expected for Noelle to have actually become a magic knight, let alone a magic knight before, well, you know. They were expecting both of them to take the magic knight exams the same year, but no, she actually somehow became a magic knight without even having to take the exams. This would motivate Yuno even more here because of the fact that she basically has a head start. Now. She already became a magic knight before him. Make that make sense. That's highly unusual. After all, he has a 4-leaf clover grimoire, and he has very strong wind magic. He would have expected that they would become magic knights the same year, but no, I guess he has to adapt now. He has to change up his thinking now. But he would eventually still make it into Golden Dawn. And yeah. This is also when he would meet, well, you already know. He would also end up meeting Asta around this time, and they would begin to hit it off. They weren't the best of friends or anything, but they were acquaintances, you could say. Now, in terms of, well, how should I say this? When it comes to like the very beginnings for the Black Bulls, the very first thing they would have to deal with is initiation, and Noelle would already prove herself by splitting one of Magna's, she would actually prove herself by splitting one of Magna's, well, fireballs. She would have actually even reflected his largest one. She was honestly quite impressive towards the Black Bull members. This was one magic knight that they were not expecting to ever meet. One with no magic at all, but anti-magic instead. This would take some adapting, but she seemed like good people. Obviously, when it came on to another arc, after the initiation arc, we would have to go through, simply put, that sort of bet that Yami made. They would have started off with just grabbing a bunch of boars, basically dealing with some wild boars, but eventually it would actually evolve into quite a bit of a larger mission. This mission, of course, would be with this sort of mist around this village. They would actually go and explore the village, cutting down the mist, realizing that it's some sort of mist made from mana, and actually would discover some sort of group here that were basically killing off these civilians, these villagers. They were just trying to figure out why, though. They mentioned that they were looking for something, but they didn't really know what, though. They immediately decided to make quick work of these guys. I'm going to be honest, not much really changes in this arc. The only thing that really changes here is that the one that really gets to defeat these guys here is Noelle instead of Asta, and there's no third person to really come along here. Now we reach into the more interesting arc, the dungeon arc. This is an arc where I'm going to say that rather than Yuno being here, it would have actually been Asta. Of course, Momo's wouldn't be interested in Asta here for obvious reasons. Alabama! No, we don't do Alabama here. We don't promote incest. So of course she would not be interested in somebody like Asta. Maybe or somebody, but not Asta. That's just weird. She can't be attracted to her own cousin. No. And she's not interested in Noelle either, since I don't know what her sexual orientation is, but I don't think she would be attracted to Noelle. I don't necessarily know if she's bisexual or anything along those lines. But yeah, Yami would have actually been with Noelle and Luck here. They knew the third member as well. Anyways, so she would have been their replacement here. Yami, for the simple reason that she doesn't really cause that much trouble. She's actually a very, very useful character. She's been known to actually know how to fight. She can hold herself in a battle, although she really likes food. And when it comes on to the whole food part as well, her sheep can cook. She has sheep that can cook, replenish your mana through her cooking. Think about that. Just think about that for a second. Even if you don't have mana, that food is still delicious. Give me that magic. But obviously, though, unfortunately, we will not have that sort of crush scene with Yami meeting Yuno and immediately falling in love. But she would actually be interested in Asta in this timeline because we need a ship. Because of the fact that we just need a ship. This is something that Purple Heart even mentioned. We need a ship for this story. So yeah, that's the ship for this story. Congratulations, y'all. There's always going to be some form of ship for at least some story. If you guys think that these guys really have a chance, though, in this timeline, we basically have an Asta with magic, a Noelle with anti-magic, Yami, Luck. We also have Mimosa, and that other stuck-up guy. I forgot the name of that one guy. I don't even remember his magic. All I know is that he wears glasses and that he's part of the Golden Dawn. Somebody can fill that out for me in the comments. I really just don't care for this person. But really, all that really changes in this timeline is that they're able to do much more. They have a lot more potential people. They have a lot more people that are capable of themselves in this timeline. When it comes on to Noelle, we already know her deal. And when it comes on to Asta, he's already a natural born fighter. When it comes on to Yami, she already has her expertise in fighting, and when it comes on to how she can handle herself in the battle, if you mess with her food, that's pretty much a death sentence for you. That's a death wish for you. Do not mess with her food. Even without the addition of the Black Bulls here, the Golden Dawn and this timeline would be able to carry themselves because of the fact that Asta is more of a beast here. He's had magic for most of his life and he's trained it extremely hard. He's trained it to where it's pretty much one of the best forms of magic right now. The only thing that it's really second to is Nozelle's magic. They have the same sort of magic, it's just that Noelle has more experience in this magic, but Asta is showing more potential than Noelle was when he was the same age as him. So, well, RIP to most of these guys. The smoke guy, they would probably be able to do something to Mimosa. They would probably be able to really take down Mimosa in the beginning, but that's about it. Even then, she would be able to hold her ground for a little while. Even in canon, let's face it, when it came on to Mars, he was basically already being mollywomped for a good portion of the battle. In this version of events, this would have been even worse because of all the different editions here. They would have probably also ended up encountering some of the treasure. They would not be able to necessarily grab him or anything, more so that they're able to knock him out and basically just subdue him for a little while until they realize that they didn't really take into account that there would be some more backup from the Diamond Kingdom. The Diamond Kingdom would still be able to retrieve Mars, and when it came on to these magical items though in this timeline, they would not have been as successful here. They would not have been able to grab as much treasure and all of this, but they were able to just get a decent amount. Not as lucrative of a mission as they had hoped, but they were still able to get something out of this. The Magic Knights of the Clover Kingdom, this is a different story though, because they're able to get much more thanks to all the different forms of factors here. All of the different people that were here that are very capable of themselves are able to really subdue most of the villains in this arc, and that's basically how I'm going to leave it off. all you guys really need to know is that Asta is going to get an upgrade here. And when it comes on to the rest of the Magic Knights, when it comes on to somebody like Noelle, she ended up getting a new sword from this Ike. When it came on to the treasure, they would have also gotten quite a bit of treasure here. A lot more than in canon, thanks to the fact that they were much stronger here. And there were more capable members. So that's basically all you guys really need to know. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. King Ty next, out.